Emil August Fieldorf NIL was a Polish brigadier general. He was deputy commander-in-chief of the Armia Krajowa after the failure of the Warsaw Uprising. The Soviet NKVD executed Fieldorf in 1953. Biography. General Fieldorf's ancestors were partly of German origin. He was born on March 20, 1895 in Kraków. He finished Men's College of St. Nicholas and later a seminary. In 1910 he joined the Polish pro-independence paramilitary organization Riflemen's Association, becoming a full member in 1912. He also finished the school for non-commissioned officers. World War I. On 6 August 1914, Fieldorf volunteered for the newly formed 1st Brigade of the Legions under Joseph Pilsudski. With them he set out for the Russian front, where he served in the position of second in command of an infantry platoon. In 1916 he was promoted to sergeant, and in 1917 directed to officer school. After the Oath Crisis he was pressed into the Austro-Hungarian army and moved to the Italian front, which he abandoned to return to Poland. In August 1918 he volunteered at the Polish military organization in his home city of Kraków. Formation of a new Polish state. From November 1918 Fieldorf served in the ranks of the Polish army in the newly forming Second Republic, initially as a platoon commander, and from March 1919 commanded a heavy machine gun company. In 1919 and 1920 he took part in the campaign to join the Wilna region to Poland proper. After the commencement of the Polish-Bolshevik War, as a company commander he participated in liberating Dynaburg, and in the 1920 Polish expedition to Kiev. Fieldorf married Janina Kobylinska in 1919, with whom he had two daughters, Christina and Maria. Remaining on active duty after World War I, he was promoted to major and posted to the 1st Polish Infantry Regiment as a battalion commander. In 1935 he was given command of the Troki Independent Battalion of the Border Protection Corps. A year later, he became a lieutenant colonel. Shortly before the outbreak of World War II, he was made commander of the 51st Giuseppe Garibaldi Rifle Regiment within the 12th Infantry Division on the eastern fringes of Poland. World War II, Fieldorf commanded his regiment during the Polish September Campaign. After the division's defeat, on the night of September 8–9, he fled in civilian clothes to his native Kraków. Further he attempted to get to France, but was stopped on the Slovak border. He was interned in October 1939, but fled several weeks later from a camp and reached France via Hungary, where he joined the newly forming Polish Armed Forces in the West. In France he completed staff courses and was promoted to full colonel in May 1940. In September of that year, he was smuggled back to occupied Poland as the first emissary of the Polish government in exile, under the nom de guerre which he had chosen for himself. His circuitous route back to Poland took him through South Africa and by air over Rhodesia, Sudan, and Egypt, then on to Romania, and by train to Poland. His aeroplane's flight path over Sudan and Egypt followed the Nile, hence his nom de guerre. He initially joined the Union of Armed Struggle in Warsaw and from 1941 in Wilno and in Białystok. A year later he was given command of the Kedif of the AK, where he served until February 1944. It was on his order that the infamous SS and police leader Franz Kuchera was assassinated on February 2, 1944 in Operation Kuchera by Sergei Siregi, shortly before the collapse of the Warsaw Uprising on September 28, 1944. He was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General with an order from the Supreme Commander Kazimierz Sąkowski. He became the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the AK under General Leopoldo Kulik in October 1944. He was also nominated for future command of the NIE organization, which was formed from the cadre of the AK with the intention of resisting the new Polish Stalinist government. Arrests and execution. On 7 March 1945, Fieldorf was arrested by the Soviet NKVD in the town of Milanovac. Initially, he was misidentified under the name Walentigadanicky and sent to a forced labor camp in the Ural Mountains. Released in 1947, he returned to New Poland ruled by the Communist Polish Workers' Party government and the increasingly repressive Ministry of Public Security. He settled in Biała Podlaska under his assumed name and did not return to underground activities. Moving between Warsaw and Kraków, he eventually settled in Łódź. The government, which was persecuting former resistance members loyal to the London-based government in exile, offered an amnesty to them. In 1948, not knowing that the amnesty was a sham, Fieldorf outed himself to the authorities. He was then placed under investigatory arrest in Warsaw. In prison he refused to collaborate with the communist security services, even under torture. General Fieldorf's brutal interrogations were personally supervised by MVP Colonel Józef Rozański. Kazimierz Górski, Polish Secret Police, the UB interrogator, testified in 1997. Rozański would stop by frequently during many of my interrogations of General Fieldorf, and he would have conversations with him on many subjects. The prosecuting attorney Benjamin Weisblech would show up frequently as well, and would, on many occasions, give me verbal instructions. I prepared a decision to refuse the general's evidence materials. I wrote it under the dictation of Weisblech. I didn't decide as to whom and how I should interrogate. Fieldorf was accused by prosecutor Helena Wolinska-Bruce of being a fascist Hitlerite criminal and having ordered an execution of Soviet partisans while serving in the AK. After a kangaroo court trial, he was sentenced to death on 16 April 1952 by the presiding judge Maria Górowska. An appeal to a higher court failed, and the family's plea for a pardon was denied by then the communist leader Bolesław Bierut, who refused to grant clemency. The sentence was carried out by hanging on 24 February 1953 at 3 p.m. in the infamous Mokotow prison in Warsaw. The communist prosecuting attorney Wiktor Gatner described General Fieldorf's last moments as follows: "I asked the condemned if he had any wishes. Fieldorf responded, 'Please notify my family.' I stated that his family would be notified. The condemned persistently looked straight into my eyes. He stood erect. No one was holding him. He made an appearance of a very strong man. One would almost admire his composure amidst such dramatic events. He neither screamed nor made any gestures. I said, 'Carry out.' The executioner and one of the guards approached the condemned. I went to see the warden afterwards, and then by my own hand I prepared the protocol of the execution. General Fieldorf's body was never returned to his family, and remains buried in an unknown location to this day. In 2009, an article in a British newspaper suggested that Fieldorf was buried in a mass grave in a Warsaw cemetery, together with the remains of 248 other murdered Polish patriots. In 1958, the prosecutor's office discontinued any further investigations, rehabilitation and recognition. In 1972, a statue was erected on his symbolic grave. In 1989, following the collapse of Communist Poland, Fieldorf was officially rehabilitated. In 2006, President Lech Kaczynski posthumously awarded him the Order of the White Eagle. In 2012, the supposed mass gravesite was to be searched for Fieldorf's remains. Search for justice. Fieldorf's daughter, Maria Fieldorf-Zaska, called for the prosecutor responsible for the execution of her father, Helena Wolinska-Bruce, to be brought to face justice in Poland. Wolinska, a military prosecutor in the 1950s, was accused of aiding in the investigation and trial that resulted in Fieldorf's execution. Wolinska signed Fieldorf's arrest warrant and extended his detention several times, although she was aware of his innocence. A 1956 report issued by the Communist authorities concluded that Wolinska had violated the rule of law and was involved in mock investigations and show trials that frequently resulted in executions. The charges against her were initiated by the Institute of National Remembrance, which claimed that Wolinska was an accessory to a court murder, which is classified as a Stalinist crime, and is punishable by up to 10 years in prison. The case attracted international attention. The United Kingdom refused to extradite her, and Wolinska-Bruce died on 26 November 2008 without being brought to justice. Speaking about other individuals who have had complicity in the court-sanctioned murder of her father, Maria Fieldorf-Zaska said, "I can neither allow the investigation of my father to be closed, nor to allow the following individuals to escape justice: the Deputy Director of Justice at the General Prosecutor's Office, Alexei Graf, the Prosecuting Attorney, Victor Gatna, and the Interrogator, Kazimierz Gorski." They could have refused. No one forced them, either physically or psychologically. I demand that the people who murdered my father be brought to justice. I dream of Poland, whose institutions of justice are transparent and worthy of true respect and confidence. These types of institutions ought to be the foundation of a sovereign nation. I would want us Poles so much to be able to choose our own examples to follow, and not those promoted by others. Joseph Rozansky died in 1981. Maria Gorovska died in 1988. Alexei Graf died in 2005. Feature film. In a historical drama movie entitled General.He, based on Fieldorf's life, premiered in Poland to generally positive reviews. It was directed by Ryszard Bugajski with Olgierd Lukasiewicz in the title role. Honors, decorations and citations. Order of the White Eagle, Gold Cross of the Order of Virtute Military, previously awarded the Silver Cross. Cross of Independence, Knight's Cross of the Order of Polonia Restituta, Cross of Valor 4 times, Gold Cross of Merit, Merit Forces Central Lithuania. Bibliography. Stanislaw Marajacek Snopkovich, Z. Brodnia. Sprawa Generala Fieldorf and Nila Widornik to Alpha, Warsaw 1989, ISBN 83-7001-3082. Tadeusz Krzyzkowski I Stanislaw Jurakowski, Generał.He Polski Niepodlegle, Editions Spotkania, Warsaw 1991, Wit. 2 Uzub, I Poprawiony S. 91.